And that gets you to a number, $10 million of Bitcoin when we're 20% of the world's wealth in today's dollars. You own the most desirable thing in the universe and you lock it away and you wait for 100 years and your family is rich. And if that's the case, then why would you ever watch their television show? Why would you ever give them your money? Why would you ever pay them a commission? Why would you give them a 2% management fee and a 20% participation? Why would you buy their altcoin? Why would you buy their stock? Why would you hire them to give you advice? Why would you read their writing? Why would you listen to their video? It's like, you don't really need to do any of that if you just buy Bitcoin and hold it. Bitcoin is going to replace chaos, strengthens Bitcoin as an asset class, and drives more capital into the asset class, whereas chaos is undermining everything else in the conventional 20th century economy. So that's, why I'm bullish on Bitcoin in general.
Bitcoin has always captured the attention of the financial world as it holds a promise unlike any other. Its allure lies not only in its meteoric price surges, but also in its potential to revolutionize global wealth. Michael Saylor, the forward-thinking CEO of MicroStrategy, continues to shape the narrative surrounding cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin. His latest forecast for 2023 has set the industry abuzz, painting an extraordinary picture of what lies ahead for the pioneering digital asset. Bitcoin has outshone every conventional asset class, including tech giants, boasting a staggering compounded annual growth rate of over 40%. Saylor's conviction in Bitcoin's potential has positioned it as the golden standard of investment. This revelation has the potential to reshape the crypto landscape and offer profound implications for seasoned investors and newcomers alike. Let's interpret Saylor's recent insights and predictions. Bitcoin is a long-term investment.
Well, I think in the fall of 2020, I disclosed that I'd acquired 17,732 Bitcoin, and I haven't sold any. You don't sell your Bitcoin. And then MicroStrategy, in its latest quarterly release, announced that it had now reached 158,400 Bitcoin. So we have just been consistently acquiring more Bitcoin, and we've, done it through a dozen or more different transactions, cash buys, debt issuances, equity issuances, etc. So generally, you could say that I'm long Bitcoin. I think MicroStrategy is getting close to having invested $4.7 billion of cash, of real money in Bitcoin, just slightly less, something like that. And I bought the 17,732 Bitcoin, back when it was about below 10,000. So I probably invested $175 million of cash at that time in Bitcoin. Obviously, we're long-term, so it doesn't really matter what you spent to buy it. It matters more about how many Bitcoin you have and whether you're still holding the Bitcoin when Bitcoin hits $1 million a coin or 10 million a coin. I don't think it's very wise to sell Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, and so Bitcoin maximalist means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but certainly what it means from an investor point of view is I view Bitcoin as the apex asset. So MicroStrategy is a public company. Our strategy is literally to acquire more Bitcoin. Our strategy is not to trade. Our strategy is not diversified investments in a portfolio of technology companies. Our strategy is very simple. We're a levered long Bitcoin operating company. Like everybody else, I'm wishing I had bought more Bitcoin when it was 9,500 a Bitcoin, right? It's, ultimately, it's the best thing you can do.
Long-term potential of Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin is, in my opinion, over 100 years, theoretically in the long run, it's like a 14% versus a 7% monetary inflation rate. Now, if you look backwards, there's a time when Bitcoin was growing 200% a year, then 100% a year, and the last 40 months have been 40 to 50% a year. So clearly, it's reasonable for Bitcoin growth to be cooling at some point, but the difference between 14% and 7% is the difference between your $1 million becoming $1 billion At 14%, your $1 million becomes $1 billion of purchasing power, right? And at 7%, your $1 million stays $1 million, right? So ultimately, you can get excited in the near term about hyper growth Bitcoin, the 40, 50% Bitcoin, that's hyper growth. And I can give you a dozen reasons why it'll continue to grow more than 14%, over the next decade or so. But the reason that thinking out 100 years makes sense is because when you think out 3 generations, it's very clarifying, and it allows you to avoid all the noise and all the confusion and all the sound and fury. And everybody wants to wave smoke and mirrors in front of you and get you to juggle razor blades and shock and awe you in order to get you to give them your money.
Bitcoin's impact on currencies.
Bitcoin is going to replace all the assets that are currency derivatives, and it's going to replace all of the assets that are weaker properties. So for example, I'm still going to use the dollar to pay my employees, but maybe I won't hold sovereign debt or corporate debt on my balance sheet. Maybe I'll replace the debt with Bitcoin, right? Do I want to wait 30 years and get paid 3 or 4% interest for 30 years? Or do I want to own Bitcoin, which is appreciating at 40% a year, and in the extreme will appreciate, say, 14% a year, right? Tax-free or tax-deferred. So if you think about it, Bitcoin's replacing bonds. It's not replacing the CNY, the euro, or the USD. It's replacing the bonds that are paying coupons in euros or CNY or USD. And then it's replacing value stocks, because you bought that value stock, like that utility company, because it pays a dividend, and it pays the dividend in USD or euros or CNY. So if the value of the currency is falling 7% a year, then the value of the discounted cash flows is also falling, right? The discount rate is the 7%. So you got to take the cash flow from the value stock and take the risk-free rate of 7%, tack on a risk premium of 5%, and you have to discount the cash flows of the value stock by 12% a year. So you see, if you think about the math, you realize that the value of the cash flows from the company are falling exponentially, and the higher the inflation rate, the less valuable the cash flows in the future. Now, what kind of company don't I want to own? Well, a company that has a 1% growth rate in a 7 or 8% inflationary environment, because the cash flows are growing at 1% and you're discounting them at 12% because of the risk premium, right? So that's minus 11% every year forever. On the other hand, if the company is a monopoly and it's growing its cash flows at 20% a year and the inflation is 7%, then I might think that I might want to own that kind of company. Now, off the top of your head, what kind of company as a monopoly can grow its cash flows 20% a year for the next decade? How many do you know? That's like the Magnificent Seven.
Future of Bitcoin, insights and predictions.
So it's going to go up. It's going to go up cyclically. It'll grow fast. If I said I expect 40%, it'll grow 80%, and then it will crash down 30%, right? There's no way that the world is able to adjust in a perfect exponential. That's not the way that markets move. They overshoot and they undershoot. And so that's why you kind of have to have a steady hand, and you have to have enough education to have conviction. And, if you're trading with 20x leverage, you're not going to be able to hold that position through the entire cycle, right? And if you're trading with 20x leverage with a mark-to-market, on FTX, right? You might wake up and find out that the exchange wiped you out due to a clerical error on their fault. And then you sue them, and then you find out they bankrupted themselves. And so you're standing in line behind $10 billion of creditors. And so you could be right and still wrong. So you have to be careful about how you execute your investment strategy and what counterparties you trust and what time frame you take. But, as a general rule, simply allocating your long-term portfolio to Bitcoin, looking out 10 years, and then enjoying the ride is probably the wisest course of action for the average person or the company or any investor for that matter, in my opinion. The only strategy I promote is long-term hold for a long time. And the only asset I would promote is Bitcoin. All my other comments are just opinions and observations, but I don't promote another strategy. I don't promote another asset. So hopefully people understand that. With regard to observations, I have some observations on both those. My observations on ordinals are they're indicative of new applications that are forming on the Bitcoin base layer. And in theory, I think that there is demand to do immutable transactions.
In the world of cryptocurrencies, one thing stands resolute: the monumental impact of Bitcoin. Its meteoric rise and potential to transform global wealth have left an indelible mark on the financial landscape. Remember, the future of finance is ever evolving, and staying informed is key to navigating these exciting shifts. The unwavering commitment of Saylor to Bitcoin and the incredible potential of MicroStrategy's approach perfectly reflect the astounding growth of Bitcoin as an investment asset. This revelation is more than just a forecast. It's a seismic shift that could redefine the crypto landscape. Keep learning, keep exploring.